Ladies and gentlemen, today we are going to talk about what you need to do if your Seadoo sinks or somehow becomes submerged. Maybe, you weren't driving it, it just sunk at the dock, whatever may have happened. I'm going to explain quite a few things, so please listen carefully. First thing you want to do, obviously, get it out of the water, drain it with the drain plugs, whatever you can get. Okay, that's done. This scenario, this machine's is a good friend of mine. He left for a couple weeks vacation. We had a bad storm. He came home and the machine was nose up. Maybe, I don't know, this much of it sticking out of the water, straight up and down. And he called me and he said, do you think we can figure it out and deal with it? How to get it fixed and back running? Well, of course we can. So first thing he did, he got it out of the lake. Looks like it was chafing against a rock and tore it up a little bit here, probably in the bottom of the lake while it was nose up bobbing. So he drained it, he brought it up to me right away. He said when I drained it, there was a lot of oil in the water. A lot of oil residue in the hull. So first thing we did, we had no power. So we did a test on his battery with a multimeter. And the battery turned out bad. You just take this baby, put it on DCV, black and red, it tells you what the battery's at. If it's under 12.4, it's probably no good. So anyway, I have a battery here at home that I stuck into it for him, and I thought I'd have this thing, semi powered up when he got here. We put the new battery in, and we have nothing on the key. And trust me, this is a good battery. I won't waste my time hooking the multimeter to it and showing you. That's my battery out of my own Seadoo, and I just bought it, so definitely not the issue. So first thing we did was, where this machine was underneath water, normally a battery shorts out underneath water and it gets ruined. That's common. But I was concerned about this other stuff because depending how the machine sank, this may have became submerged before the battery did. So something else could have potentially shorted out. But, again, it's a Seadoo. It's kind of meant to, I wouldn't say it's meant to sink, but they do kind of think about this stuff when they build them. So anyhow, we had power everywhere. Except for up there at the dash, nothing. So, anyway, there's still a lot of other steps that you got to do. Obviously there's water in the engine, there's all those steps, but to investigate in this no power scenario just a little deeper, we had issues with this machine before. It's an RXT 260 with the handlebar connection underneath the hood. So we took that apart, investigated that. There was obviously some moisture into it as well. Pretty well every connection there was moisture into. We took the air gun, blew it out, still no power at the controls. So then I came in here and we opened up the fuse panel. And I tested this fuse panel and every fuse has power. So I was like, right on. But there is one relay in this particular machine. And a relay is an almost perfectly sealed box, but when you put a relay underneath water, which water got into this obviously, you can still see droplets, and we cleaned it. I later suspected this relay to be the culprit. So after trying to chase the ground, because at first I thought it might have been a bad ground on the battery, but the cables in this machine are in very good condition. So there's no corrosion and everything's pretty clean, right? So anyway, we pulled this relay out and I crossed power from terminal to terminal with just a jumper wire, and bango, the controls fired up. So if you have a machine with relays, when you sync it, before you go chasing everything else, make sure you check the relays, because they're probably full of water and they probably got ruined. And even if they only got a little bit of water, it gets in the point connection. I would show it to you, but the customer took it with him to get the new one. But anyhow, that was our electrical culprit. So the next thing we had to do was, I hate this thing. We had to get into the engine bay, pull the plugs, hook the oil extractor to to it, extract all the oil out of it. Where are we at here? Just give me a sec. Alright, so we get in here, we took the coils out, unplugged them, we pulled the plugs. I dropped the extractor in, tried to pull all the water that I could before we rolled the engine. We also get down in here and we took the boot off for the throttle body, and there was a lot of water inside the intake manifold. Most of it drained when we did that, but once we did that, put it all back together, we had the plugs out, we rolled it over then, and it shot most of the water back out of it, and now we have it rolling nicely, consistently. So we put the plugs back in. We've got the oil completely drained. In order to do so, we just leave the coils on hooked and continuously roll the engine, not continuously, but you know, so many intervals, and keep sucking the oil until you don't get any more at all. So we've got all the oil out. We've got all the water out of the cylinders and out of the intake manifold. So basically his next step is to get this relay, and this machine should be ready to fire up and safely ready to go. But yeah, definitely, you know, if a machine sinks, especially, I think they said this was underwater for like 3 days like that, most of the times a battery will fail right off the bat. But depending how the machine sinks, you know, if it's live or up against a rock or something that it sinks funnier on its side, it potentially could ruin other stuff in the electrical system. But start with your fuse box and your relays after that if you have electrical troubles. Make sure when you do the first rollovers, even if you think you got all the water out, leave the plugs out, crank it over, because there will still be some laying in your intake ports. So that's how we dealt with this. Once he gets the oil, I'll change the oil in the filter, and this thing, like I say, will be ready to fire up and ready to go again.